Prabhupada ki, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Gaur Premanandi. All glory to some of the devotees. All glory to some of the devotees. All glory to some of the devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, and Srila Prabhupada. So we were left off in Srila Prabhupada Lamrita, Volume 6, chapter titled Chant Hare Krishna and Fight. There was that funny instance where the man asked about, you chant the name of Rama, but I do not see any photograph of Rama here. So Prabhupada's response was, you do not see, but can you hear? And the man continued, I do not see. And Srila Prabhupada exploded. But you do not hear? And he went on to explain that hearing is the best way of understanding that which you cannot see. So we're going to continue from where we left off. Each evening, a prominent guest would appear at the pandal and introduce the program. One night, after J.M. Gandhi, a justice of the High Court of Bombay, spoke, Bhavananda Goswami read aloud the first two verses, along with Srila Prabhupada's commentary, from the teachings of Lord Rishabhdev in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada spoke briefly and agreed to take questions. If God is everywhere, a man asked why his presence is not felt by everybody. Everybody is not intelligent, said Prabhupada. Mostly they are rascals, manushyanam sahasreshu. This is the statement by God that out of millions of persons, one tries to become perfect. And out of many millions of perfect persons, one can understand God. So God understanding is not so easy. But if we want to understand God, God will help us. That is the point. The next man said he had several questions. My first question is, I don't think God is opposed to sex. Seriously, I've heard many a lecture, and it's always stressed as if the God is opposed to sex, but I don't think that's so. God is never opposed to sex, replied Srila Prabhupada. Who said? God said. Dharma virodho kamosmi. Sex which is not against the regulative principles of religious life. That I am. God never says stop sex. Otherwise, why is there grahastha ashram? Ashrama means that there is Krishna consciousness. But make it ashram and follow the rules and regulations of ashram. Then it is all right. Otherwise, you are bound up by the laws of nature. The same man then referred to Prabhupada's purport, which Bhavananda Goswami had read, in which Prabhupada had criticized the life of the hog-like man who lives only for sense gratification. One of your principal statements, the man said, was that a man goes on the motor tram, stands there for 2 hours, reaches his place of business, and works there from 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evening, returns back, has his food and sex and all that. I found many people who have worked very hard, raised children very nicely, have sex, but lead a good life. I don't think there is anything wrong with that. Yes, if there is no wrong, said Prabhupada, it is all right. But this sort of life is not very palatable. The man continued, because I find even the dog, Srila Prabhupada interrupted, but his reply was soft and humble. If you like that life, if you feel it is good, then that is up to you. But I don't think this is a very nice way of life to work so hard simply for bread. No, the man said, I agree there. Srila Prabhupada then raised his voice more strongly, then agreed, then why disagree? That's all right, no more. The man had more questions, but Tamal Krishna called on someone else. Would you agree that God is just a concept? If you do not, please give a logical reason for that. Prabhupada said, why shall I agree that God is only a concept? Because I want it logically, the man said. You do not know logic. You have to learn logic. But I still would like you to explain it logically. Yes, but you have to learn how to know it. There is master, just like you cannot prove logically that without father there is a child. Srila Prabhupada explained that everything we see is growing out of the earth, and the earth is described in the Vedas as the mother. But there cannot be a child without a father. Where there is mother and child, there must be father. God, therefore, is the father of everything. Logical? Srila Prabhupada's disciples were urging him not to exert himself. So when Swarup Damodar arrived, Srila Prabhupada asked him to give the evening lecture. Prabhupada was very impressed with Swarup Damodar's scientific presentation of Krishna consciousness. One of the devotees remarked that Swarup Damodar's talk seemed too technical for the audience. But another devotee replied that even if no one else had appreciated the speech, Srila Prabhupada had, and so it was a success. Following Swarup Damodar's lecture, Srila Prabhupada spoke for about 5 minutes and left without taking any questions. Srila Prabhupada ki. So Arjuna Nanda is here, so now we know that everything's working right? And the audio is good and everyone is satisfied. No one is writing comments that says we can't hear anything or we can't see anything. You have to check. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 9th chapter, text 22, chapter titled Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. Soyang samasta jagatang sureka atma tadvena yan mridayate bhagavan bhagena tena vamed shamanus prasad yattaham tena vamed shamanus prasad yattaham Shrakshami purva varidang panata priyoso Soyang samasta jagatam surekatma Tadvena yan mridayate bhagavan bhagena Tena vamed shamanus prasatadyataham Shakshami purva varidang panata priyoso. Please chant. Soyang samasta jagatang sureka atma Tadvena yan midayate bhagavan bhagena Tena vamed shamanus prasatadyataham Shakshami purva varidang panata priyoso. Yoyam samasta jagatam sureka atma Sadvena yan midayate bhagavan bhagena Tena vamed shamanus prasatadyataham Shrakshami purvataritam panatak priyoso Soyang samasta jagatam suradeka atma Sadvena yan midayate bhagavan bhagena Tenaiva medusamanush prashtatadyataham. Shrakshami purvavaridang panatak spriyoso. Doyang samasta jagatang sureka atma. Sadvena yan midayate bhagavan bhagena. Tenaiva medusamanush prashtatadyataham. Shrakshami purvavaridang panatak spriyoso. Back to Jimmy. Doyang samasta jagatam sureka atma. Sadvena yan hridayate bhagavan bhagena. Tenaiva medusamanush prashtatadyataham. Rakshami purvavaridang pranata priyoso. Anyone else? Doyang samasta jagatang sureka atma. Sadvena yan hridayate bhagavan bhagena. Tenaiva medusamanush prashtatadyataham. Rakshami purvavaridang panatak priyoso. Sa he, I am the Lord, samasta jagatam, of all the universes, Suritika, the one friend and philosopher, Atma, the super soul, Sadvena, by the mode of goodness, Yat, one who, Mridayate, causes happiness, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Bhagena, with 6 opulences, Tena, by him, Eva, certainly, me, to me, Drisham, power of introspection, Anushpratat, let him give, Yata, as, Aham, I, Shrakshami, will be able to create, Purvavat, as before, Idam, this universe, Pranata, surrendered, Priya, dear, Aso, he, the Lord. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Let the Supreme Lord be merciful towards me. He is the one friend and soul of all living entities in the world, and he maintains all for their ultimate happiness by his 6 transcendental opulences. May he be merciful towards me so that I, as before, may be empowered with the introspection to create, for I am also one of the surrendered souls who are dear to the Lord. Please repeat. Let the Supreme Lord be merciful towards me. He is the one friend and soul of all living entities in the world, and he maintains all for their ultimate happiness by his 6 transcendental opulences. May he be merciful towards me, so that I, as before, may be empowered with the introspection to create, for I am also one of the surrendered souls who are dear to the Lord. Purport. The Supreme Lord, Purushottam, or Sri Krishna, is the maintainer of all in both the transcendental and material worlds. He is the life and friend of all because there is eternally natural affection and love between the living entities and the Lord. He is the one friend and well-wisher for all, and he is one without a second. The Lord maintains all the living entities everywhere by his 6 transcendental opulences, for which he is known as Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Brahma prayed for his mercy so that he might be able to create the universal affairs as he did before. Only by the Lord's causeless mercy could he create both material and spiritual personalities like Marichi and Narada, respectively. Brahma prayed to the Lord because he is very much dear to the surrendered soul. The surrendered soul knows nothing but the Lord, and therefore, the Lord is very affectionate towards him. That one verse immediately comes to mind. Nitya nityanam chetanas chetananam eka bahunam yobhidadati kamana. Supreme Lord is one, but he is the Supreme One. Although there are many other living entities, only one maintains all. This is something that, as we saw from the questions presented to Srila Prabhupada at the Pandal, people don't have a broad concept of the interaction between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and whatever conception they have and the material world. They don't understand the Ishvaraha, Paramaha, Krishnaha, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadi Adi, Sarvakarna Karnam. And that Govinda is the cause of all causes. Now, Brahma is coming to that realization. And here are his prayers culminating in this point. And how is he able to, as before, create? There must be some connection. Otherwise, what is it's not that Krishna said, okay, here's the manual, now you create. And you have to construct everything like some do-it-yourself project. You go to IKEA and you buy some cabinet and you have to put it together. So, but the Vedas are compared to the manual for executing worldly affairs. So many things are there that everyone has to know their position. Yajan, Patan, Dam, Pratikaha, the Brahmins have to know what is their duty. Kshatriyas have to know what is their duty. But how do they know? They only know because by the Lord's grace, situated within the heart of Lord Brahma, he gave him the natural impetus to conduct the secondary creation. But he didn't have to explain anything. This is wondrous. And so this is something which is difficult to logically present. But it boils down to that single point, sarva karana karnam, that there is a cause beyond all causes, and Prabhupada implied that there is nature, we call Mother Nature, therefore there must be a father. If they say that the material nature is the source of all creation, and what is the source of that? But then this leads to many trying to explain things from that impersonal perspective or voidist perspective. The Greeks had a word for it. What is that word? You know? Chaos. Chaos. So they understood these two principles. There was chaos and chronos. There was time. They could understand that. Everyone understands that time is passing, that it exists. It is something which doesn't have to be explained elaborately, although we understand a little bit more about the way time acts. Even, what's his name? Who is that famous Manhattan scientist? Oppenheimer. He quoted that. Time I am destroyer of all the worlds. When he observed the successful detonation of the atomic weapon, later became known as the atomic bomb. Time I am destroyer of all the worlds. So with these two ingredients, the Greeks concocted so many different things. They even had, theirs was also the first, and at least in the Western perspective, to understand the atom. Everything is made up of particles. But they're probably getting most of this from the Vedas, because there was some exchange of knowledge from early travelers. We don't know if the Sanskrit or the Vedas were translated into Greek, but there was definitely some cross knowledge there. So that is, we understand that sarva karana karanam. Krishna is the cause of all causes. He's also the source of all knowledge. Everything that's there, if someone wants an answer, if he's intelligent, he will seek out what is the source of all knowledge. Just like that person who wants to know what is the source of creation. So people are prepared to accept things if it's presented logically. And therefore, Prabhupada was trying to encourage the correct answer in the exchange by saying, yes, this is all right, but what does that mean? He was trying to encourage him, like Lord Brahma, a little introspection. So this is why we call it Atma Tattva Gyan, the science of self-realization. One who is introspective, he can gather all these disparate concepts, and he, with the help of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his authorized representative, he can then assemble them. So it's like all the parts. So we have all these concepts or misconcepts within our mind. And when we read Bhagavad Gita, we see that they're being properly organized. Maybe for the first time in anyone's life, when you read Bhagavad Gita, you get that moment. They call it a eureka moment. Now they don't even say eureka, they just say aha. You get an aha moment, whatever that means. But yeah, it's the same thing. The light bulb goes off. And all of a sudden, that which was not clear becomes crystal clear. This is introspection. This is everything being put together, with the catalyst being that someone is now a little humble state of mind. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. He has to approach Bhagavad Gita with that, not ego, not thinking that let me conquer this book, me with my intelligence, but let me be open. People are always trying to inject themselves. That's why we see so many people, they translate Bhagavad Gita and their name is prominent. I'm saying, instead of Bhagavad Gita as it is, this person or that person's interpretation. So how can that person have any realization if he's not in the, I should probably say, in the line of disciplic succession? There's always some deviation. So this is very important. A subtle point, but still, nevertheless, one has to be strict. Otherwise, there's so much opportunity for this adulteration. And someone may say, no, this is not adulteration. This is enhancement. No, you will get something better. If you come and listen to me, if you read my book, no, you will have a higher understanding. Okay? This is there. But there is nothing needed outside this Bhagavad Gita as it is, technically. If one is sincere, then he has that understanding and appreciation that Krishna will appear in the form of knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Just as he appeared to Lord Brahma. And what did Lord Brahma do with that introspection? He created the material cosmic manifestation. So what to speak of the insignificant living entity? What will he do with that knowledge? Well, first of all, he will perfect his human form of life. And that is the transcendental benefit. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha. So what else does someone need? One understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and disappearance. And Krishna is giving that. So then that's it. Why do we have to deviate? Try to get some different angle of perception. Someone is saying, oh, you have to see it like this. You have to see it like that. Why? What do we have to? Who's telling you this means he wants you to come to his way of thinking. He's also trying to be your guru. We already have enough gurus. We have the mind. We have the senses. They're already telling us, do this, do that. I don't need some other third party telling me I have to understand it like this. You don't understand it correctly. You have to come here. No. Prabhupada was very clear. He was just looking out for us. Someone was saying, oh, no, but you have an immature understanding. Whatever. That's a famous line my dear godbrother Dinabandhu used to say, like that, when someone would approach him with something that was not really transcendental, he would say, whatever. Because why would you argue with someone who's foolish or not serious? Let them, like Prabhupada was answering, let them think their own way. Don't disturb the minds of the less intelligent. Don't say that to them like that specifically, but just, let them go on their way. What's the point? We have better things to do than argue. Here we see that when we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam together, or reading Nectar Devotion together, or reading Chaitanya Charitamrita together, everything is there. All ingredients for success. There's nothing extraneous required. Amongst the devotees and the discussion, only one conclusion can be there, that Krishna is the supreme and all others are his servants. And so this is the essence for us. We just need to emulate Lord Brahma. He was not challenging Lord Krishna, but why this or why that? No, he was just simply, once he received the answer, then he was prepared to do the needful. And that should be our situation as well. We should be ready to render service favorably. Everything will come. For one who is patient, utsahan nishtayataya, this conviction, this confidence. Confidence means, how does one have confidence? That's faith. One is confident that he can execute a task. He has the practical knowledge to do so. He has the technical knowledge to do so. And he has the confidence to do so. So this is more than faith. It is faith which is assisted by all other aspects of one's mental, physical existence. He can do it. So we have to simply be convinced, that's all. Kutsaha nishchayat daya. And then, of course, there has to be patience. Nothing is happening immediately. The woman, she becomes pregnant. She doesn't think that I will have the baby tomorrow. No, 9 months, 10 months. You have to be patient. The baby is there in seed form. So there's no question that the baby will come, but one has to have patience. Everything else is already there. So this, we're reading about in Nectar Devotion, how different personalities, the sages at Naimisharanya, the sages in Dandakaranya. What happened to the sages in Naimisharanya? Where did they go? But we know that the sages in Dandakaranya, they became gopis when Krishna appeared. That's a big difference. Lord Krishna and Lord Ram was 2 million years difference, not like 20 years or 30 years, 2 million years. But this is nothing. Time is nothing on the transcendental platform. There is no time. So, they went from their sage bodies at Dandakaranya to taking birth as gopis in the families of other gopis in Vrindavan. Gokul. Whatever universe Krishna was appeared in. We don't know what, when it's described there that they were the sages at Dandakaranya, was that Lord Ramchandra's pastimes in this universe, in this planet? Was it a different planet? Was it a different universe? Because there's no limitation, it didn't have to be 2 million years, technically. Lord Ramachandra is just like Lord Krishna. He finishes his pastimes in one universe and immediately he begins his pastimes in another universe. Krishna's pastimes are the same. So the sages of Dandakaranya, they could have just left their bodies and immediately gone to wherever Krishna was in another universe. They didn't have to wait on this plane where there was a gap of 2 million years. Could have been 2 minutes. But anyway, these so many different ways to try to understand. But ultimately, the idea is that Krishna's pastimes are Nitya Leela. They're eternal. They're happening everywhere, simultaneously almost. But for us, it's sufficient that we try to concentrate on what we can understand and appreciate and act upon. So if we can try to imbibe the mood of the gopis, not artificially, not sentimentally, not facetiously, but through service. This is so we say Gopi Bhatu Kamalayot Das Das Anudas. So I'm a servant of the servant of the servant. But what does that mean? That means service. Service to the servant, service to the service, and service to the servant. And for us, living in a temple, we have the perfect opportunity. Every day, every minute, we're performing service to the deity. Even when we're sleeping. Don't tell that to too many bhaktas, though. Even when we're sleeping, we're serving the devotees and Krishna. Because we have to be fit. We have to be healthy. We're not fanatics. Prabhupada said, if you're hungry, eat. If you're tired, sleep. But it's not some artificial thing that one takes shelter of such activities. He does it just like in the military. They're ready at a moment's notice. Even if they get up, all their tools are immediately prepared. They don't have to walk around in a daze or a stupor. Where's my rifle? Where's my Kevlar? Where's my helmet? No, everything is there. So one has to have all his faculties in such a way that as soon as he wakes up in the morning, is Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda, Jai Srila Prabhupada. That immediately, who am I? What am I? Why am I here? Not that just stumbling around. No, there has to be some, that's that Vyavasayatmaka Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana. There has to be that focus, one pointed attention. Because if that one pointed attention is there, it will drag everything else, your mind and senses, along with it. And so many opportunities for service will arise. You'll be automatically positioned to think what should be done to please Krishna in the temple, to please Srila Prabhupada. What should be done? What should be cleaned? What should be cooked? How we should dress, their lordships, How should we distribute their books? This is our meditation. Our meditation is not some phantasmagoria where we're trying to always think. Yes, we can think. When we're reading, we should be thinking, what are we reading? What is this? When we're walking around, we're not, in this stage of life, we're not thinking how the gopis would, distribute books. The gopis are milking the cows and churning butter. And that's transcendental. But don't try to put yourself artificially on that platform. We were reading yesterday in Nectar Devotion about that Siddha Pranali, this perfection that's there. It will come. And what else did Prabhupada quote there? Tatenu kampam susamiksamano. It's there. Automatically it's there. Just like if your father is wealthy, that wealth will be passed down to you if you are in the proper position, if you haven't been, what do they call it? Disinherited. Many of us were disinherited when we joined the movement. Parents cutting out wills, we were. As if that would change our minds. But because we sacrificed that, although we didn't really think of it so much as a sacrifice. But the fact is, it was a sacrifice. Krishna recognizes that. He doesn't see, he says, oh, this devotee has gone through so much difficulty. He can make it very simple. Devotional service is simple for the simple at heart and difficult for the crooked. So what does that mean? Who makes it simple? Krishna makes it simple. Because he sees that this devotee has a pure motive. So therefore, it's simple for him. But if his mind and his thinking process is convoluted, then it becomes very difficult. He cannot see things clearly. So he's bewildered. Moga samoga kamana, moga jnana vicheta saha. Krishna takes away, steals his intelligence and covers him. Boss finished. Prabhupada used that term, kick away. So we don't want to be chastised by the spiritual master to that extent, where one's spiritual life is questionable. Prabhupada reserved that to very rare circumstances. Only one instance, a few instances, but the one prominent instance which Prabhupada repeated from the Vyasa in Mayapur was that instance where one devotee, a very prominent disciple at that time, a Sanskrit editor, and he came to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said this right off the bat. He said, came to me asking me to give him blessings to find another guru. You know that one, Arjuna? He came, and Prabhupada was very strong. He says, I gave him permission to go to hell. So this is very strong. Because you're rejecting the spiritual master who's already taken your karma. So without thinking that now I will seek another guru, all you're doing is getting all your karma back. So Prabhupada said, yes, I give you permission to go to hell. Here's your karma back. I don't need that burden. The spiritual master is accepting his burden voluntarily. Who can imagine? How that merciful the spiritual master is to take on all the simple reactions for the disciples in order to elevate them, alleviate them of their reaction, and to elevate them to the platform of eligibility. This is incredible because we say there's so many, what is that? There's the Kripa Siddha, Nitya Siddha, like that. So in that sense, we're all recipients of this mercy, Kripa Siddha. It is not by our own endeavor. Of course, some people think it is, like that Sanskrit editor. Prabhupada gave a term to that. He said, over-intelligent. Over-intelligent. A person needs intelligence up to a certain level to appreciate how spiritual life is being transmitted. Evam para praptim imam rajasu shoviduhu. One needs to know that. He has to understand that. And once he understands that, his intelligence should work in cooperation with that understanding. This is what keeps one balanced, so that he doesn't have that tendency to try to exercise his brain with some mental gymnastics, just to impress someone. Look how nicely I'm speaking, or whatever. That's there. People who have they have now with social media, there are so many different, they have these people, they're called influencers. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? But yet that tendency has always been there. People trying to influence others by some means. They have such charismatic personality. They can even convince people to commit suicide. So that is there. If one is not able to use his intelligence properly, right? Prabhupada said that. Surrender, but don't surrender your intelligence. One has to be able to think, put things in their proper perspective. That is a key to staying steady. Prabhupada often used that term, time and circumstances, not for some excuse that I should break some rule or regulation, but how to adjust things should be there so that one does not become rigid to the extent that he breaks. The analogy of the bamboo is that the bamboo is flexible. It can bend, but not break. And then the other example Prabhupada gives, that so many rods together in a bundle, you cannot break them. So which is, of course, this is the analogy of association. So therefore, everyone should maintain very carefully his association with his God brothers and God sisters, so that there is no mistake that one breaks and falls down from spiritual life. This is the greatest loss in your human existence, that once having achieved a human form of life, that he's not able to fully utilize it to achieve the goal of life. Very sad indeed. This is where compassion comes in. Why are the devotees compassionate? Because he sees that. It's like Prabhupada was being compassionate to that person, asking, what's the harm of getting on the train and working all day, coming home and having sex life? If a person thinks like that, what can you tell him? Yes, it's okay. If you think like that. That was all, because he could see what is the mind. Just by him speaking, he could see exactly where that person was at. So we're very fortunate that we're in a situation where everyone is like-minded. We don't have to explain ourselves. When we sit down and read Chaitanya Charitamrita, we can just appreciate the nectar. We don't have to constantly dissect every single detail, because Krishna has already filled in most of the blanks. Prabhupada has filled in most of the blanks. Right? And that's for us. Just see how fortunate we are. And we can give this to others. So this is our preaching is the essence. Without preaching, there's no life. And we can see that this is every opportunity. People are constantly coming through the door of the temple. Even when the temple is so-called closed, people are knocking, they want to come in. They don't know the schedules. Some of the schedules are not clear, and they're coming, but they're coming to the temple. So therefore they have to get prasadam. They have to hear something, the Maha Mantra. They have to receive a book. This is our duty. It's not just that, they're coming at the wrong time. It's such an inconvenience. I want to be in bed. No, I have to be. No, we are the representatives of the spiritual master in Krishna. We are the caretakers of this facility. It is our duty to respond to the guests who are coming. Doesn't matter what time they're coming or for what reason they're coming. Yeah, sometimes they're coming, some bum is coming, can I get some food? Yeah, okay, wait a second here. We'll run downstairs and get some food. He's coming, so therefore, we should provide, right? In the Vedic culture, the guest is considered to be God. There are some limitations, we understand. But from our perspective, everyone should be treated Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmagavani Hasini Suni Chaiva Sapake Cha Pandita Samadarshana. That is our duty, to see everyone equally. Not that, because if one starts to think, this person is this and this person is that, then what is the profit? Then simply division, distraction. This is not, we're not here for politics. So let's read the translation again to text 22, Brahma's prayers for creative energy. Let the Supreme Lord be merciful towards me. He is the one friend and soul of all living entities in the world, and he maintains all for their ultimate happiness by his 6 transcendental opulences. May he be merciful towards me so that I, as before, may be empowered with the introspection to create. For I am also one of the surrendered souls who are dear to the Lord. Everything was there. Lord Brahma had everything within him. But now he was able to, by the mercy of the Lord, recollect. Remembrance. Just another word for remembrance. It's just another word for Savashichaham Riddhishani Vishto. Riddhishani Vishto. Any questions or comments or corrections, Matanga? Yes, Tulsi Brewer. Do we have a microphone, Bhakti Jimmy, up on the top there? For everyone who's hard of hearing? Tulsi, yes.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. I want to ask 2 things. One is from the verse, Brahma is saying, may he, the Lord, be merciful to me so that I, as before, may be empowered to create. So, from what I heard, Brahma, he lives and then he goes to sleep. And in the night of Brahma, more or less, one part of the universe is kind of destroyed.
Partial devastation, total devastation.
And so what then he has to create again? Everything.
Well, if this is the same person, then it's within the same lifetime. But, even if you take it that this is another Brahma, still the facility to create must be there along with the responsibility. Didn't Prabhupada also say that? Responsibility means facility. So that entity, whoever he is, when he takes up that post, there must be some inherent DNA, you can say, that he can access a common memory bank, so to speak. It's like dogs or animals in general. We see people refer to instinctual behavior. The dog, nobody had to teach the dog how to bark. They can learn it on their own. Nobody teaches them how to hunt or how to process information coming through their senses. It's instinctual. They do all, like all dogs, all male dogs, they lift their leg. I mean, there wasn't one alpha male dog that said you have to lift your leg when you go next to the fire hydrant. So there's some instinct there built into the DNA. And no, they don't, in general, scientists, they know something now. They don't connect it, instinct and DNA, but yes, there's memory, even at the cellular level, somehow or other but it could also be that, like you said, he just went to sleep and he woke up and found himself again on the top of the lotus after a devastation. And he had to go through the whole process again. We'll have to wait for Arjuna Nanda to come back to elaborate and elucidate. And then he can give us the finer points of that. But yes, this is, in either case, the knowledge is there within. So the answer ultimately is that Krishna is instructing Lord Brahma from within, from without and within. But once he came to that, after performing austerities and penance, when he realized, Krishna showed him everything. We can expect that's sort of the YouTube video of how to do something, right? Now every day, now all the time, people, when they want to know how to do something, they go to YouTube. How to fix this, how to fix that, how to do this, how to do that. Lord Brahma had the first YouTube. Krishna showed him the entire cosmic manifestation. He said, this is how it's supposed to be. Now do it. So it's very interesting. Anything else on that question, Prabhu?
Yeah, I was thinking that, like in our case, when we go to sleep, when we wake up, we definitely see our consciousness is kind of degraded. So we have to work again to lift it up. But actually, at least it looks like that the result from our action is kept. It didn't disappear. So in the case of Brahma, to some extent, it looks that he creates, and when he goes to sleep, partially or the whole result from his job was...
Well, the hint is also here that we read, that everything is wound up in the Lord's abdomen, all the ingredients. So this could mean that it's the full devastation, when everything gets wound up again. And when Lord Brahma goes to sleep, I doubt, there's partial devastation, but he's awake. I mean, it's just another day for him, another day on the job. It's not so much to have to recreate something when it's only partially devastated. When everything is wound up in the body of the Lord, then it becomes and that's the end of his life. That's time for new Brahma. So we can accept it like that this is a new Lord Brahma, and he's getting his job orientation. Right? When you go to a job, you have to have orientation.
Thank you, bro. I also wanted to ask in regard to the preaching point that you made. We try to deal with all living entities in the same way because they are souls. But at the same time, especially when it comes to preaching, we see that we do discriminate. Like, for example, when we go to open the door, we see who is there. And we try to think, shall I allow him to enter or not? So to what extent we don't and to what extent we do discriminate in the preaching.
Well, from our perspective, a person who's coming for prasadam, we can even give it to him outside. He doesn't have to come into the temple, depending on his physical condition. He may not be able to, for one reason or another. And then at the other hand, we may see that it's better that he just receives prasadam. Not that, maybe he's, I can tell you a simple story to illustrate. And this story actually impacted a lot of the content of the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Okay, so now we have 6 volumes, and then additional little books, drops of nectar. So when I was a temple commander in the skyscraper building, Prabhupada used to call, it wasn't a very big skyscraper. 11 stories in New York is nothing. Empire State Building is 100 stories and all these different things. So at night, the temple commander is usually the last one to go to sleep. After a Sunday feast, everything has to be clean. You have to make sure all the pots are washed, everything's put away. There's nobody left hanging around in the temple, and then the doors are locked. Okay, and then you can take rest. I was in the front lobby, very nice lobby of the 55th Street Temple, because it was a very high-class nursing home run by Catholic Charities. So very well done, very old building, but very prominent on that block. So we had, like we have this arrangement here, when you come in the door, there's a separate foyer. That's called a foyer. Little glass keeps the cold air in and out, or hot air in and out. And people can get out of the elements way before they come in. So we had a very big foyer on 55th Street. We had 3 sets of doors, big brass doors. And from the outside, 1 set, but then 3 sets going into the main lobby, which is a huge lobby. So I saw someone knocking on the outside set of doors. And it's late, and nobody's up. I'm the only one up. I go to the door. And the person who's at the door looks like a bum. There you could see it. How does a bum look? He's wearing multiple sets of jackets or multiple sets of pants, and they look like they're puffed up because they have so many clothes on, because it's winter, it's cold. So, okay, I'm thinking someone wants prasadam. They knew, come to the Hare Krishna temple, you'll get prasadam. Okay, so and it's cold outside. You bring them into the inside foyer. The doors behind me are locked, so there's no worry there. So open the door, and the person comes in and he says, "Where's Swamiji?" I'm thinking, who's this person? I said, "Which Swamiji?" "Swamiji, where's Swamiji?" We have sannyasis in the building. At that time, many sannyasis are there. I said, "Do you mean Srila Prabhupada?" He said, "Swamiji, where?" And this is 1978. So Prabhupada had just left. I said, I don't know what this person's connection is, but I said, Prabhupada left the planet. Prabhupada's entered into samadhi. He passed away. Immediately, this person's demeanor completely changed, and he was evidently emotionally impacted by this fact. I thought, how does this bum, how is he having such a reaction to hear that about the passing of Srila Prabhupada? So he wasn't coming for food. He was coming to see Swamiji. So anyway, I opened the door because I was curious now. And he looked harmless. He was a big guy, but he looked harmless. So I brought him into the main lobbies. And I sat him down. I said, "How do you know Srila Prabhupada?" And he said, "I helped Srila Prabhupada when he was on 72nd Street, when he was because this person used to go to Dr. Mishra's. His name, Prabhupada used to call him Mr. Robert. Now, nobody knew where this person was. After years, he was off the radar. And all of a sudden, he shows up. And so then I thought, okay, I have to tell Satya Maharaj. This person is like, the things he told me, nobody else knew. Nobody else knew. He used to hang around with Prabhupada all the time. Prabhupada would send him on errands. He would bring Prabhupada things. He would help him carry stuff and put it into the office on 72nd Street, into that room, But he would also accompany him to Dr. Mishra's. He became like Srila Prabhupada's servant. He was so intimately connected, and he had such an attachment to Prabhupada. Anyway, when he came back, he got in touch with Satsuma Maharaj. Somehow or other, he became, his condition was, in the material world, they would call that person a little bit of a slow. He was functional on all stages, but he was not, he had the emotional presentation of a young person, but he was already an adult. So that's why they categorize that person. It's a type of, mental situation. But this person was mechanically completely competent in many ways. He eventually moved in here to this temple at some point. Actually, he kept his apartment, but he stayed here many times, overnight and everything. He had some, state provides some, facility to give money, and he had some place to live. And I'd been to his house, at that time, because I was still here doing construction when he came back. And he even got initiated from one of our gurus at some point, Jagannath Das. And it's Jagannath Das. But you'll see, if you read Lilamrita, anytime you see in the beginning where it says Mr. Robert, that's him, Robert Nelson. So if I hadn't opened the door, that soul would not have come back to Krishna. Now, that's not that I'm simply the instrument. I just opened the door. And what he told me was I was just getting nectar. He was telling me all these stories about Prabhupada. This was amazing. And it was all verified later on by Satsrupa Maharaj and his researchers like that. So you never know. I mean, this is just, like I said, just a small thing just to try to appreciate that one point, that who is coming. It's better to take the chance and just be appreciative that, okay, Krishna is sending this person, whatever. I may or may not understand. Let me try to be the representative and extend the hospitality that, would be done in previous times, maybe, if we weren't thinking that this is just Kali Yuga. Now we have to be careful everywhere, and we do, obviously. But at the same time, anyway, just a small instance, just so that that how these things happen. Any other questions or comments? It's getting late. Matanga Prabhu will be angry. Breakfast is not being served on time. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Full case of mangoes. The king of fruits. By the mercy of Gopal. Did he trade mangoes for Bhagavad Gita?